I thought I was close to figuring out the finale, but the new episodes turned everything upside down, so I started digging further. And I think I found something that you should know about too. I'll explain everything, but first, something important. It would be incredibly kind of you to subscribe to my channel. It helps me get closer to my goal of 500 subscribers. Also, don't forget the likes and comments, because that helps push my content. I'll warn you right away. In this video, I will be discussing the play, The First Shadow. So, if you plan to watch it or feel that you don't want to know about Henry Creel's past before the final season, you might want to save my video for later. In the meantime, let's get to the topic of the video. When I watched the first episodes of the new season of Stranger Things, I had a strong feeling of déjà vu. The idea of time loops, a dark connection between generations, a secret facility that poisons the whole town, and the physics lesson in Erica's class just cemented my conviction that this is literally a mirror of the brilliant German series Dark. It's hard to explain the premise briefly, but I'll try. The show centers on the German town of Winden, where a boy named Mikkel disappears. I think you catch the parallel with Will Byers. Mikkel's disappearance sets off a chain reaction for the main character, a teenager named Jonas Conwald. Jonas tries to understand what happened and eventually learns the terrifying truth. Mikkel didn't just vanish, he traveled to the past and got stuck there. As the story develops, Jonas learns that underneath Winden's nuclear power plant, in the caves, there is a kind of passage, a wormhole. It allows travel exactly 33 years into the past or future. This isn't magic. It's the result of a terrifying accident that released such a massive amount of energy that it punched a hole in space and time. Jonas tries to change his brutal reality, but his actions keep recreating the future he fears. Jonas begins to understand that time in his world is looped. Remember the moment of the clash between Henry Creel and Eleven? During it, Eleven literally punched a hole between Hawkins and Dimension X. Many believe that she alone launched all the events that followed in the series. It's hard not to think so, as the show constantly tells us this. However, I believe that's not entirely accurate. Let me explain why. Let's go back to Dark. In reality, everything didn't start with the explosion at the nuclear power plant, but with the local clockmaker, Tannhaus. The man built a time machine to bring his relatives back. During the experiment, something unexpected happened. Instead of changing the past, Tannhaus tore his world in two and created two parallel worlds, looped in time. Jonas lives in one such world. You understand correctly, Jonas's world should not have existed. It's an error resulting from Tannhaus's experiments. The power plant workers did not intend to create anything similar. I'm not excusing their responsibility, because, believe me, there's a lot to condemn them for. If you've watched the show, you'll know what I mean. I just want to convey that they didn't know that their actions could lead to something like this, because they had no idea what world they were actually living in. They became the catalyst for a problem that had existed long before them. The same thing, in my opinion, happened in Eleven's case. I think entirely different people launched all those events in Hawkins. Now I'll explain everything. To answer this question, we need to recall our favorite play, The First Shadow. The play begins with Dr. Brenner's father overseeing the Project Rainbow experiment. This is a reference to the urban legend of the Philadelphia experiment. Brenner's goal was to make the military ship USS Eldridge invisible using powerful electromagnetic energy. The experiment spiraled out of control. Instead of just becoming invisible, the ship briefly teleported into Dimension X, creating a temporary tear or rift between the dimensions. Martin Brenner's father was the captain and the only survivor of the USS Eldridge crew. He returned to our world with severe injuries and an altered blood composition. It was later revealed that his body was infected with Dimension X particles. All this took place in Nevada, where Henry Creel's family first lived. In my opinion, this event is the beginning of everything that would later happen in Hawkins. Eleven likely didn't have a choice, as this was all planned. You know exactly who I'm talking about. We know him as the Mind Flayer. Well, I'm more than certain that Brenner's father wasn't returned to our world by chance. He became a kind of conduit between the worlds, infecting other residents until the Mind Flayer chose another conductor who could hold a piece of its power. And if I'm right, this once again confirms my long-held theory that the true villain is far from being Henry Creel. Vecna is merely a puppet. If he ceases to exist, the Mind Flayer will find someone else, for example Will. Therefore, our heroes need to eliminate the cause of Vecna's appearance. That's what will lead to the collapse of all events. You understand correctly, we will be dealing with time travel. I think our heroes will have the opportunity to travel through time, as I'm more than sure that something in the Hawkins lab hides the capability to do so, something from Brenner's old toys. Knowing Eleven's abilities, she'll be able to activate it. Just look at this photo from the Season 5 trailer. Doesn't this remind you of this? So, if I'm right, our heroes might try to travel back to 1956 to try and persuade Henry not to yield to the dark forces. Perhaps they will show him who he could become and what grief he will cause others. An option for dialogue with Martin Brenner himself is also possible, but I don't know what arguments would need to be made, as he is literally a scientific fanatic willing to make any sacrifice for result. Personally, I expect our heroes to go back to the time when Brenner's father was supposed to conduct the Philadelphia experiment and prevent him. That would be more logical, as that is when the Mind Flayer gained access to our world. Even if our team convinces Henry, what's the guarantee he won't find another victim? Henry wasn't the only vulnerable child, but that's up to the Duffer brothers. If they want a more emotional option, they will of course choose the route with Henry, omitting other details. And perhaps you've already guessed it, but I'll say it anyway. If our heroes take a step that leads to the collapse of the loop, then everything that followed will cease to exist. Since 11 is a direct result of Brenner's experiments, she too will cease to exist. Or a new timeline will be created where 11 is just an ordinary girl with no memory of what happened. I remind you that this is just my theory. We'll see how it really turns out at the end of this month. Let's agree that if it comes true, you'll write me about it in the comments under my video. I'd also be grateful if you left a like on this video. I tried very hard to explain the essence of Dark, which is actually a very complex show that I recommend watching. Believe me, despite my information, there's still a lot to see. Thank you for watching, and until next time.